Okay, so this is a demo on hand sculpting, and the first part of that process is going to be isolating the fingers so that we can manipulate them quickly, and we're going to do that using polygroups. So I'm going to show you how to create separate polygroups for each finger, including the thumb. First thing we want to do is step down to the lowest subdivision level of our model, and I'm going to switch my selection tool by holding Control Shift and clicking on the brush icon and choosing mask. Oop, not the mask tool, and with the selection tool, Control Shift. There we go. So now when I hold Control Shift and draw out my selection tool, I get a lasso rather than a rectangular marquee. So what I want to do is basically reveal one finger at a time so that I can create a polygroup from it. You're going to find your polygroup menu down under Tool. Let's close that. Polygroups. Okay, so now that I've quickly isolated some of the fingers, I want to continue to isolate just the first finger that I want. So by holding Alt, I'll now hide the other fingers. I'm also going to want to get rid of this top row of polygons, which represents the knuckles. Close that. And now you'll notice that in order to get polygons that are in tight places like this, I'll click at the top, and let me do this again. We can see that we've got a couple polygons there for the ring finger, and then the remaining polygons for the pinky, which are the ones that I want. And so rather than taking the lasso select tool and trying to carefully divide this, which also works, it can be quicker to start your selection at either end of the narrow window between the fingers, and then make a big broad selection and let the straight line that finishes the selection do the work for you. Okay. So now that we've got the one pinky or the one finger isolated, I'm going to hit Group Visible and then Control Shift click on the negative space to reveal everything. You can also see that I'm working with symmetry turned on so that I create symmetrical polygroups, which is what we want. Okay, so I'm going to do this again. Control Shift click to isolate the fingers, hide all the fingers that I don't want. Now, if I've got a partially hidden mesh, I can Control Shift click on a polygroup to hide that polygroup. It's just kind of a quicker way of hiding some of the points. So now I'm going to keep hiding the rest of these. Oh, undo that. Control Shift click, holding Alt, and again here I will Control Shift click at the top, bring the lasso all the way around to the bottom, line the straight line up in between the fingers and hide those. Now Group Visible. Okay, Control Shift click, Control Shift click. Not sure why that's not working. Oh, because I'm on a Mac. Command Shift click. Okay. A couple more times we'll go through this process. Hide those two fingers. At this point, I can either just reveal whichever one I want to keep visible or hide the other one. Control Shift click. Oh, I didn't follow my rule there, so I'm going to have to very carefully work my way up that finger, and you see I missed a couple of polygons here. It's not a big deal. What I can do is invert my selection by holding Control Shift and clicking and dragging just off in the negative space. And now what I can do is hide those remaining polygons so they join their friends in the pointer finger. Alright, well, group visible there. Now lastly, we want to isolate visibility on the thumb. So we can hide it, invert selection, group visible. Now if I reveal everything, you can see we've got a polygroup for each finger and the thumb. And this is nice because if I control with everything visible now, as opposed to having a partially hidden mesh, I can Control Shift click on a polygroup and it will isolate just that polygroup. So again, if everything is visible on my current subtool and I have polygroups, I can Control Shift click on a polygroup to isolate the visibility of that polygroup. Now if I invert the selection, you can see I've got a partially hidden mesh. Now if I Control Shift click on a polygroup, it will hide that polygroup. And what you saw there was I Control Shift clicked on an edge, and so what ZBrush does is it hides the entire edge loop. Okay, so we'll bring everything back. So again, that's one way that you can utilize these polygroups. The other way is switching to your transpose tools, either move, rotate, or scale, doesn't matter which one. And now with one of these selected, one of these transpose tools selected, I can Control click on a polygroup to mask everything but that polygroup. So now if I wanted to manipulate just the pinky, then I can very easily do that. Okay, clear my mask, and you'll see that these polygroups stay with the model no matter how high or low I am in my subdivision levels. Okay, so that's how we set up our hand before we move on to sculpting it.